Okay, so this is the one tradition I have. Well, there's two traditions for the show. You gotta sing the opening jingle along with me.
Okay.
You remember it, of course.
I do.
Not necessarily. I'll sing it, and if you just feel like harmonizing, you can, or then we can do it again. Laura and I sang it like 15 times. It's kind of fun. Anyways.
I have no idea what the jingle is. I can't think possibly what it could be. Is this it? Band's tuning up.
This is gonna be fun. This is truly a New York recording. Okay. The jingle goes like this.
Hit it.
Time waster radio. Radio for those who refuse to listen. You wanna do it?
Am I just doing the singing part?
You can do whatever, you can sing along with me.
It was a time waster radio. What is it? Do it again.
Time waster radio.
Time waster radio.
Radio for those who refuse to listen.
Did we just do it?
Does that count?
I don't know.
You're a singer. I just assumed you wanted to sing.
I did just sing a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you want more of a loud, grand moment with it?
Yeah. Okay. I want you show the audience what you got.
Are you?
Do you want to do it on your own? You can.
Okay.
You can. Go.
No, I mean let's both sing it and then you do the talking.
So on the count of 3.
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Time waster radio. Radio for those who refuse to listen. Oh, you didn't want to say that part.
No, I thought it seemed more like a unit, solid, single line.
Okay, sure.
I mean, I could do it.
Let's try it one more time.
Do you want me to do the spoken line?
Yeah.
And radio for those.
Why don't you do it on your own?
Radio for those who refuse to listen.
To lose.
To lose.
Radio
for those who refuse to lose.
Yeah. Whatever you want. You go for it.
It feels weird doing it solo.
All right, fine.
Let's do we'll do the sung part together, and I'll do the talking this time.
Okay, that's a good new tradition. 1, 2, 3. Time waster radio.
Radio for those who refuse to listen.
I hope it looked like you were really faint on that, but that's perfect. If you want them to hear it, I say lean into the mic. If not, who cares? All right, this week we have oh shit, I'm in Brooklyn with Honey McMoney. Or
that's true.
You go by any other? Is that it?
Honey McMoney's perfect for tonight.
It's true. We have Honey McMoney on. Hi, Honey.
Hello.
We can hear the trains.
We can hear the trains.
At some point, the bird's gonna come by. Maybe not.
Nah, she might got to bed already.
She was on Bridget's show, so she made several appearances. Yeah, I don't know. I'm about to catch a flight. This is actually becoming a new tradition of doing these podcasts an hour before I have to go catch a flight. It's not a podcast, it's a radio show. I keep forgetting that. Damn it.
Edit it out. Edit it out.
I don't have time for that. So be careful what you say.
Shit.
So, honey, what are you working on right now? Who are you? What do you do? And why am I talking to you?
Man, I'm working on not having a cigarette, but just the fact of doing this is kind of making me have to have a cigarette.
You're going to need a cigarette.
I understand how this works now. I don't smoke, by the way. Single, don't smoke.
Single, don't smoke. A hot homosexual man. Or not.
Or not.
Bisexual man. Trisexual man.
Right now, I'm working on, paintings. What am I ever working on? Paintings, performances. I don't have any performances coming up. No, that's not true. I just made that object to do the yes-no thing.
Mm-hmm. So you're going to start planning for that? How long does it typically take you? You like to make sculptural objects to revolve around your performances, right?
I think signs have become a recurring theme over the years. So not quite objects. I really was like, oh no, it's actually a thing about signage. So yeah, I made a new street sign today.
Today?
No, not today. I don't know why I claimed I did it today. The Universal today. I did it the Universal today.
And can you describe that sign?
That sign is like a triangular column laid on its side, and it says yes on one side and no on the other side.
Profound. And
Profound.
What is profound? And what do you think you're gonna do with it?
I don't know. Just take it to the street and hang out with it.
We do public performances in your. Honey lives right next to Prospect Park in Brooklyn. And do you do a lot of? You've been on that sidewalk.
I rarely do performances in my own neighborhood.
Didn't you do one though?
I did on. I don't know if I even quite considered it performance art. I think it was just a straight up political statement of standing on the corner during the inauguration with a sign that said compassion.
During the day of the inauguration?
I think during the speech, actually, I went out there and held up my sign.
You were like, I'm not going to listen to this. I'm going to go outside.
Yeah,
okay. Little did you know it was going to be one of the most historic inaugural addresses ever.
And there were never more people. I mean, I think, 2/3 of the United States was in the plaza there that day.
Mm-hmm. It's true. That's what I've heard. I really feel like cigarettes deplete my energy.
They do. They're terrible for your chi.
Yeah. What's chi? I'm terrible. I lived in San Francisco for almost 15 years and didn't...
Chi is just the energetic body, breath, energy, energy, you know what I'm saying? Like...
Exuberance?
No, it's not even it's kind of physical energy. But whatever. Flows through meridians and stuff.
And smoking...
It's the stuff that everything's made out of.
So when you just suck in...
At least when I think about it that way. I may be using the word differently than other people use it, but...
Well, one would hope you are. I mean, you're an individual. Don't we all redefine every term?
I guess so. Yeah, well, for sure.
It sounds like we're smoking pot.
I know. Well, hey, we are,
Yeah, so just describe what you're doing. You're going to pour...
My teapot is really hot, but it's not ready yet.
What kind of tea are you having?
I am having chrysanthemum tea.
Okay, so
you don't need these anymore, do you?
I don't need those keys anymore, thank you. Appreciate it. So herbal tea. You want to pass out?
Herbal tea. I mean, I don't have a lot of brain cells today, is the fact.
This could be part 1 of 2, you can always say that. Is your ego, ergo the ego?
What? Am I too, what?
Is your ego just not here to do a podcast?
No, I'm fine chatting, but I just am like...
Radio show.
Radio show. Are we live right now? No.
No. That doesn't mean it can't be radio.
Sure, but I just suddenly didn't know.
We're totally not live.
If my dim-wittedness was traveling across the universe right now as we speak.
What's that called? When your body is traveling and you're not?
Astral projection. No, your body's traveling, but
astral
you're not.
projection.
You're your astral body.
Astral projection.
Yeah.
I've been gone from California too long.
When the astral body leaves the physical body.
Where are you at?
Where am I?
Yeah. Are you here or are you traveling somewhere?
No, I'm pretty here.
Okay.
I'm just not very bright today.
I think this is 2 podcasts, radio shows in a row where everyone's been tired. It's hot. It's hot here in New York.
It's hot. It's a lot of pit sweat, a lot of butt sweat.
What are you wearing? A sarong?
I'm wearing a little sarong thing.
I'm wearing a swimsuit. I really do think I might need a shower again before I go to the... But... I mean, when was the last time I would show up at the airport smelling like whiskey and cigarettes? 4 days ago. This time I won't have enough energy to cruise in the bathrooms for Republicans, but I will try. I'll give it a good college go. Okay, so you're a painter, you're a performance artist.
It's true, I do those things.
Mm-hmm. Is there something... you're a sculptor.
I make small sculptures. I guess I make big sculptures when I have room to make big sculptures, can afford material, but...
Do you consider you do a lot of painting on paper that seems to be sculptural to me?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. There's definitely some hanging around us.
They occasionally become sculptural, I mean...
Isn't everything sculptural?
They kind of are, just by the nature of the 3 dimensions, or 4 dimensions that we're experiencing.
Do you consider 2D painting, even a stretched canvas, to be a sculpture?
I mean, kind of. Although, I mean, I think one of the things that appeals to me about watercolor is its super flatness. Like, it has no sculptural quality, really.
Yeah. So you mostly work in an abstract style, generally? I mean,
I would say process style, because it's not usually abstractions of anything. Although I feel like suddenly I've taken a more figurative turn, and I don't necessarily mean human figures. Just because, do you remember those red paintings that I made?
Yes, I do remember that.
And after that, I was like, oh my god, what's left to do in this direction? And I went back to, like, I'm in a little utopian kick or something, as, like, some sort of remedy.
A utopian kick? A remedy for what's happening in the world right now?
Yes.
Okay.
So, of course, now I'm, like, back into silver and gold and stuff like that. Love silver and gold.
The pigments?
Yeah.
Do you? I always found those problematic to use. But
for sure, but I'm super into them.
You're into problematic materials, I take it.
Well, watercolor is already a pretty abject medium in that way that it's sort of like boats and barns and, like, you know, community art center, like, paint in a field, whatever.
Have you thought about going into landscape painting? I mean, this feels a little landscapey.
I mean, they get landscapey, but this is also like what we've been trained to see and what we just naturally pick out of things. Shapes, forms, we make landscapes, we make faces.
Try to make sense out of what you're looking at.
Exactly.
When you're making a work, let's say, not using the word abstraction, but when you're using the process of putting paint on a surface, do you have a preconceived notion? Is it different every time?
Usually I like, and the other thing about watercolors, because, like, you can't really ever you can't step yourself back. There's it's a really, like, forward process. It's not like oil paint or something where you could, like, scrape it off, or, I don't know, I don't even work in oils, but, like, it doesn't have that changeability. You can't paint over things.
You can paint over, but you can't... Yeah, I work
transparent watercolor, like, you're always seeing those layers, like, under there, like...
Which I like. You're into layers.
Sure. I mean, you can over-paint, but you can't paint over. Like, you can't cover something up. You can't hide...
Because it's not opaque.
Because there's no opacity.
Do you work in gouache over, or are you mostly watercolor?
Mostly transparent watercolor.
Okay. How long has that been going on?
That has been going on for... I mean, I guess I sort of, like... started messing around with watercolor seriously maybe like in 2006. So what is that? Oh, sorry, I was going to lean forward again.
I think you're talking very quietly.
Am I? Sorry.
That's okay.
I have no energy to project.
For a stage performer, you'd think there's somewhere a microphone's at.
It's like, it makes me get quieter and quieter. I need the mic, like, right in front of my lips, so I can whisper.
Scratchy, movie. Oh, there is a roach. Look, there's a cute roach.
Where is there a roach?
It's right behind.
Fuck you.
Get it. Oh.
Sorry, buddy.
Is it just me, or is your aim on that getting worse?
I don't know. I'm actually better with my hand.
Hopefully I won't be taking too many roaches to Athens, but whatever. Okay, I'm smoking one of the 3.
Go for it.
I shouldn't, though. I went from not smoking all day to having 3 in less than an hour.
I just smoked one I totally wasn't going to.
And you regret it.
And whatever.
Actually, I'm not going to smoke this. Put it right back.
What were we talking about? Transparent watercolor.
Yeah. Tell me about your process.
I mean, I guess with that, like, making a painting is sort of like, obviously you have to start with something, you know, you have your blank thing, and then, like, I kind of work, because of the nature of, I mean, there's like the actual work is always immediate, but like the steps in between can be this period of deliberation where like you have to really decide what the next thing you're going to do is, because once you've done it, you can't be like, I wish I'd done something. I mean, sometimes you do things and you're like, that was fucked up, and then you have to like work your way out of the problems that you create, and I guess I kind of deal with them in this sort of like puzzling fashion where it's almost like you've started this puzzle but you have there's no like whatever box cover to like, you know, you don't even know what the image is that you're making, but you kind of just puzzle over it until the point where you're like, one day you're like, I have completed the puzzle. And that's just an internal sense of like the puzzle is completed.
Okay, well this goes back, so then like there's that whole there's a fear of like, you know, the blank surface. I get the feeling that looking at your work that you often make a mark, maybe with no specific intention to making that mark, and that mark leads to the next mark.
Yep.
Okay.
That is often the case.
Okay.
Start somewhere and figure out the puzzle.
But do you like sit around, like we're in Honey's studio right now, so like when you're making, you have a different process than I do for sure. I generally will start and finish a work. I on rare occasion will go back and do a little reworking. I have found that I tend to fuck things up. So I'm very much into immediacy. I feel like some of your work, or a lot of your work, comes across looking like you do that, but knowing you and seeing it, I know you do, it's more methodical. Or in the sense of like time, you let stuff
I mean, I think there's an element of, deliberation and accumulation, too. Where, like, sometimes, you know, I'll get to a point with something and I'll just be like, I don't know what the answer is right now, and I must simply puzzle over it until suddenly usually there's a moment with something where maybe hours or even days or even weeks, months, where it maybe just goes into a state of I can't quite figure it out, and then at some point there's an impulse of where it'll just be like, paint this part of it pink, or whatever the impulse is, and
where does the impulse come from? Right, like you might wake up one day and just be like, fuck it, that corner needs to be,
or I'll just be looking at it or whatever, just like reflecting on what my next move is, and then it'll suddenly be like, that's the thing, and like.
But is it materials based too? Like for me, I'm always like, of course you're limited by what you have, sort of, but do you start going, I should wait till a new tool or process or I don't know, just dipping something else in ink or watercolor?
I do use a lot of like. There was a while where I definitely use brushes, but I often have used a lot of other objects to apply paint or leave traces, like in a sort of like almost like trace fossil way.
You're in the like there's a lot of there's like a stain quality with objects, I think. Like I don't know, I'm not here often when you're painting, so I don't know.
Well, and this one actually that we're looking at here is all brush. There is no other object used in that.
You did use brush on that, okay.
That one's all brush.
Okay.
But this one was like a fishing net.
That you put on the surface.
Fishing net on the surface, and often like because of the nature of watercolor, and because you need to let layers dry as well if you don't want them interfering with each other in that way.
How long did this one take you? This fishing net piece?
That one was pretty fast, actually. But like obviously, there's the blue layer, the yellow layer, the pink layer. That was 3 different things that needed to dry.
Yeah.
And then the other part, which like all the squares, is also fishing net, but just like painted differently, so it created a different situation.
I feel like I know it's probably not tea, but there's a tea tone to some of that, and I work with tea I'm surprised, as someone who loves tea as much as you do, I'm surprised you don't use it as a medium.
I use things like that tend more to get used in like more like performance related drawing making.
Okay.
like hibiscus tea. I feel like I have a bunch of hibiscus tea paintings.
Okay.
Or hibiscus petals painting, which is the same as tea.
Are you putting the petals on the surface and saturating it with water, and letting it just...
Yeah, it ends up being a variety of things. Look, in that box that Mark just sent me, there was a piece I just laid down, like, a bunch of, I don't know, whatever. It was a fairly large, like, floor surface made of paper, and then, like, I had people we were just walking around throwing hibiscus petals down, and we were just walking around on the surface. And sort of, like, crushing the petals into the wet surface.
Okay. It was wet
smearing
paper.
them around. I was, like, walking around, like, dribbling hot water on the surface, on the paper as well.
Okay. That was Mark and Beth. That's who Mark.
Yes,
and
Mark kept those paintings for a long time.
Someone who I want to do a podcast, radio show with as well, because he owns the Mark and Beth Aesthetic, which is a San Francisco golden era performance documentation that we'll get to later. But so he had a bunch of the
He had a bunch of them, and was cleaning out and decided he didn't want to house them.
What was in that box? He just got a box from San Francisco of his years there.
It's those performance drawings, which I was surprised he even still had them. I don't know if they would have survived if he hadn't kept them for some reason, because they're sort of that. I haven't looked at them in a long time. Mm-hmm. They're that fine line of being like, it was a cool performance moment, but
where was the performance?
That was at the Tenderloin National Forest, the luggage store annex.
Oh.
Do you know where I'm talking about? In the Tenderloin.
It was the annex for the...
It was the luggage store annex, and the Tenderloin National Forest was, like, next door to the luggage store annex, and it was in the luggage store annex for some...
Give me a corner.
Maybe it was
Give me
like a... one of Seth Eisen's, like, buffet flats things. Do you remember when he was doing those?
I do.
It was one of those.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, and, like, do you feel... I mean, you thought those might have been destroyed, and now you have them. Well, how do you feel about it?
I kind of just need to bust them out and look at them. I don't even know how I feel about them as, like, paintings or whatever. No idea. There's a bunch of... I did, like, a long blindfolded piece in a gallery in San Francisco, and all the wall drawings from that are in that box.
That's how we met, actually, right? You're or it was one of the ways that we met.
You were
blindfolded.
That was when I was drawing people's heads blindfolded.
Okay.
There was that.
Did you have a whole blindfold period?
I did 2 blindfolded pieces in a row.
Okay.
And so I think the second was the one where I was drawing people's skulls at Yerba Buena blindfolded.
Okay.
And then the other one was just, like, in a gallery with paper on all the walls, and I just wandered around for, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours just finger drawing with graphite on them.
So the surface of the gallery space, or the exhibition space.
Yeah, the entire exhibition space was covered in paper.
I might steal that one from you, actually.
And I just wandered around, and I had a little bag of graphite, and I just sort of, like, felt my way around. And
How did you enjoy that piece? What goes through your mind? Because that's performance, and you're also physically drawing.
It was interesting, and I got into some, especially because, especially in a space, you start to learn the space differently, and you almost start to have ideas of what you're drawing where, even though that's a little bit like, maybe it's not so, like, object-oriented quite as that, but you can start to have an idea of, like, oh yes, I'm on this wall again, and I remember that there's something about this wall that has a certain... Or, like, you have a certain feel about the different walls and what you're doing. I don't know. I haven't seen those drawings either.
Did you have... No idea. So when you put the paper up.
I put the paper up.
So you have a concept of what the space feels like, even though you're blindfolded. So you still have an idea.
Yeah.
And did you have, like, a preconceived notion of, like, some of the gestures, or...
No, I just, like... that piece was on, like, All Souls Day, Day of the Dead. Mm-hmm. So there was something sort of, like, ghostly about it. I think I even called it a ghost story.
Okay. Did it...
So I had a little brief like, wake for myself.
That's what I want to get to. When you're doing a piece like that, do you have, like, an internal performance of, like, what's motivating you, or...
I think often... That was a really weird accent. I think often...
Slightly Canadian, go on.
I think often, I feel like with a lot of pieces, like even though there's some idea of what is going to happen, it's really not until you're in them that you discover the actual like state or like character of them or something. Or character is kind of the wrong word because it sounds too much acting-y, but like the state around them of like, you know, you've kind of made yourself a setup, but then until you get into it, you don't know how it's going to feel, so you don't know. When I just did the Blueface piece, the Calm Down, Cheer Up piece, How to Get Around.
Okay.
I mean, I did that. I like put on I had a Blueface wig, my tunic or whatever, and then but it really wasn't until I exited the subway that I kind of just started entering into the piece and like figured it out. Sort of. I had some idea, but until I was actually feeling it, I didn't know quite how it would be physicalized, I guess.
But you went with it, so it's like. You once you commit, you just whatever is going to happen, it's going to happen, whether it's a success or not, and whatever defines success or failure or whatever other term.
I mean, just make some commitment, even if that commitment changes to another commitment.
Yeah. So you are flexible on some level.
For sure. I mean, I think you have to be, especially when you're dealing with like the street.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know who you're going to encounter. You don't know what situations you're going to, like, bump into or bump into.
I know people who are very rigid, like, once they start. So, I mean, I, too, am very flexible. Like, I feel... I don't know if I want to entertain people. That's not the end goal, but I do understand that, You also just don't want to waste... Like, for me, I don't want to waste my time. So, like, if I feel like it's better going in that direction, I'll catch that subway.
Yeah. I mean,
that train.
I mean, I think ultimately with those moments, like, whether or not you're doing them for whoever might view it, the contention about what you're doing and why is, like, internal. Like, I don't think anything is sort of, at least in that performance stuff, it's, like, hard to make it just like, oh, I'm doing it for...
What is your end goal? What is your like when you're doing a public piece? So you know that it could go so many different directions. Are you just experimenting with life to see how?
I mean, I think some of it is just like social experiments, and just make people consider like reality in some other way.
But there's something else happening. Like there's something always happening. You're not. Might not be seen,
or also all the things that could also be happening.
The possibilities are endless.
The possibilities, exactly. And like, trying to hit some like other level of possibility for a moment.
When you're when you're doing a piece in the public space, do you feel the need, like, obviously your obligation to what's going on depends on the person. Like, when someone starts interacting with you, do you feel like... I often feel a need to address the interpersonal relationship.
For me, it depends on the piece. Like, some pieces are set up where it's just a more direct interaction, and you'll just be kind of talking to people, or I'll just be talking to people as myself, essentially, and whatever that is, and having just, like, normal social interactions around whatever the proposition might be. Like, I gave away all my spare change in Union Square one day, and that was very much like chatting with people about whatever and like why I was doing this. And
how much spare change and like how long? You didn't come with like a bag of change. It was just what was ever.
I've been collecting the spare change. I'd collected over the course of like 5 years.
Okay.
And
so a bag of coins.
All the quarters had actually been taken out of it, so it was like small change.
Nickels and dimes.
Nickels, dimes, and pennies, and.
Do pennies count anymore?
I don't know, but you have them, like whatever. I had all this change, and I didn't know what to do with it, and I was having that moment of being like, do I go to the bank? Do I roll this shit? Like, blah, 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 and it was, like, so annoying. And I was like, this is basically a performance art budget right here. Why not just make it into the performance art piece? And this is also around election time. It must have been, because, like, was Trump already elected? Maybe it was the fall after the election. And change just seemed to be, like, such a given at that moment, and I don't know, just walking around Union Square yelling change, 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 and then also giving away change. Like, I don't know, people were really like dumbfounded by the whole thing.
I'm assuming in New York there's going to be, with your general public, and you're dealing with a lot of tourists as well, doing something like that. People are going to be like, why? Is this contaminated?
But then there were also people that were like, sure, I'll take some change, and we're happy to just take a fistful of change or whatever. And of course, in Union Square, there's all sorts of people in states of like homelessness or, dereliction of some sort. It's like, whether it's like addiction or just plain old poverty.
Plain old poverty.
And initially, I had thought that I might not have that be interactive and just put a sign down that said change and leave the change like in a pile. There's something, I don't know, about like bird seed. Like how the coyote is always leaving like piles of bird seed or whatever. Something about the coyote for the roadrunner. I'm sorry, I'm talking. I just visually, I'm
thinking of like people getting people across the border.
Totally beside the point. But like I had a moment of realizing, like I was like, but that's kind of gross. Like having people just like bend down to pick up this small change, which is when I was like, no, I'm going to put it in a box and be there personally, yelling change and offering change and like at least having that human interaction on like what's going on here.
You're into you're into human interaction on some level, because like for me, not that I would do this, but like, and I, for so many problematic reasons, but if you leaving a box of change and then if you're doing a piece, at least getting some stills or something, but just even having a camera there photographing, or just honestly just getting 1 or 2 stills, people doing that would come across odd and sort of not superfluous, but like,
or just a little
arrogant.
Bit like a little bit like.
Okay, so interacting with them is,
it just seemed gross when I thought about it, even though like I had this like cute image, but like but almost a little bit like there's something a little bit like degrading about being like, come bend down and pick up this like small change off, like
make a beautiful pedestal.
But I just thought like making it into a human interaction where it's just like.
And how long did that piece go on?
Until the change was gone, maybe an hour.
Okay. And it was just in Union Square?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I'll go back to this blue face that you've seen on the roach. Get it! I need an ice cube for my whiskey. Also.
No, it's just the damn, that's a big old bun. Nope.
There will not be one. I'm not another banana.
What?
I have 2 bananas in my suitcase.
They don't travel well, remember?
Well, I'm going to eat them on the plane.
Okay.
I just remember. Do you want an ice cube?
Oh, sure.
You take that.
Alright. They're not quite ready, I don't think.
Some of them are. I mean, there's cold water, too.
That's true.
Cold.
Here it goes.
Cold water. You want to hear it? Is it going to happen? Put the mic nearby. You're having bad ice cube luck.
Cruel, it didn't pop. Oh my god.
That'll be the soundtrack to this visit. Ice cubes popping. That didn't sound bourgeois. Wait, so back to the blue face piece.
Yeah.
What was the name of it again?
How to get around.
And why blue face? Why wig? Why what?
I don't know. That's just like, again, sometimes you have some impulse around, like, in the same way that you're, like, staring at the painting in some state of deliberation, and then you're like, I must now, do the next step. And I think performance art pieces, for me anyway, can often be, often start with some vision of being like, I must paint myself blue and have this long, sort of like Jesus-y wig.
Like, okay, so there's the Blue Man Group. I don't mean to bring that up, but these are the kinds of things when I start to do anything visual, especially in a public space. The other references people may or may not tangentially come to you. When I saw the still, and again, like with all of mine, there will be a feed of links and pictures to said things. Well, yeah, I'm just curious. When you walked out in Blueface, like, there's all kinds of. There's also like the combination of it, like it can sort of be like a safe version of blackface, or not that that's what you were intending, but these things read. I see how other people take my work. So you got the. It was a long wig.
It was a long wig. For me anyway, the whole blue thing, it just relates to, I mean, there's just like such a long history of like blue entities.
Avatar, go on.
Avatar, sure.
Horrible movie. Go on.
Do you remember when everyone was like, they were having all those Avatar support groups for people that like just couldn't go on with their lives after seeing the movie? Because they were so depressed that they could never ever live in the world of Avatar.
No,
this is like a real thing. This is like there's seriously like a wave of depression and support groups. I'm gonna just fucking smoke that other cigarette now. But blue, like there's a lot of like Hindu deities that are blue. The Smurfs are blue. I mean, like, you know,
yeah,
I feel like
I mean, the
there's
Smurfs,
like the blue. There is the Blue Man Group. There's Avatar. Like, you know, sure, like all like blue is like actually this like. There's even a blood disease that makes people kind of blue. There are a bunch of people in the hills of Kentucky that were called the blue something or others. I can't remember now.
Because of inbreeding, or
they had some like hemoglobin defect or something that made them not carry enough oxygen, and they just weren't red enough.
In the Appalachian?
Blue, yeah, somewhere. I think in Kentucky.
That could make sense. I can see that. A lot of puritanicals stuck in the middle of the Appalachians, not used to that elevation, genetically not moving from that area for a while.
Yeah, someone had some mutation, and for a while there were a bunch of kind of blue-looking people.
Did you reference that? I feel or someone sent me that link. I know I've seen the blue folks of Appalachia.
I mean, there was a period in my life where I was more interested in like researching blue things and blue entities, and it's like, you know, some of it's gone now. But of course, there's so many like. Blue tends to be a color for like Hindu divinities.
That's true as well.
And that of course goes back for like how long? And like actually like a bunch of different, like the way faces were colored often indicated something about their nature in the sort of like divine scale of like, you know, green more demonic, red more demonic, blue more like.
But then why the long
heavenly.
auburn wig? What was
the wig? You know, it's funny. That's just like, again, like a feeling of that, and there. I guess my first idea for a blue piece, which I have not yet done, and I'm just going to share it because if anyone wants to do this, they can. But getting a long, blonde, frizzy wig, like middle parted, and then fully nude blue with a blonde merkin and some white shoes, and then doing something one might call the Smurfette dance.
But the wig wouldn't be blonde. You said the blonde wig?
The wig would be blonde.
Oh, it would be blonde.
For the Smurfette imagery.
Yeah, I can see that.
And a blonde merkin and some white heels.
I think
Smurfette
there was
dance.
a younger Smurf that had auburn hair, which I thought about too when I looked at your reviews. Not that that's going so.
Oh, there was like a younger Smurf, like Smurfelle. I don't remember what her. But
she
it's
had some
like
horrible
that, right?
name. I'm sure it's a truly horrifying name, whatever they called her.
Smurfetta.
Smurfette and Grandpa. Is it Grandpa Smurf?
Papa Smurf.
Papa Smurf. That was not
There is
good.
a Grandpa Smurf as well, and then a Baby Smurf. These were years later. I'm almost embarrassed that I can tell you so much about the Smurfs.
When did
But I'm
the
kind of into
Smurfs come out?
Have you seen that Tom of Finland-esque drawing of Smurfland?
No.
It's amazing.
Is it like
The Smurfs, I feel like the Smurfs have actually been around since the 60s, maybe.
okay? Because they were coming from like a mushroom. Okay. These mushrooms got
They
invented in
lived
the
in
60s.
mushrooms. There was also a cartoon called, I feel like somehow relates to
Gargamel.
like colored bodies, the Barba Papas, or maybe it was called just Barba Papa.
What is that?
And the Barba Papa, it was this French cartoon that I must have seen when I lived in Belgium as a child. It took me a long time to figure out what that was all
You
about.
lived in Belgium as a
I
child?
did.
I didn't know that.
I did.
How many years were you in Belgium?
I lived there for 2 years, ages 2 to 4.
Okay. You think you've been imprinted by the Belgian?
But I did remember that cartoon from that age, and it took me a long time to figure out what that was, and I would ask people about it, and no one in this country knew.
The
but
Smurfs
they were kind
feel
of
like a
shaped-
French or Belgian, German cartoon. They do. It does feel like that for me, now that I think about it. But
I can't
so
remember.
maybe they are French. The Smurfs are French. It makes so much sense.
I honestly can't remember the total history of the Smurf. I'm not like a huge history person. I kind of learn things, and then I'm just like, I don't know, I gotta do my shit.
Just to be clear, I'm not saying Belgians are French. I just know they're close. So this piece was just
Anyway,
in you.
totally, what? So this piece, right?
This does
But the
not
Marble
have
Papas
to.
were these different colored, shape-changing blobs, and it was a family.
Okay. Mr. Cartoon, you remember?
Yes.
Okay.
Marble Papa means cotton candy in French.
So they were like pollen. These like amorphous
They were
pollen.
and they could turn themselves into musical instruments and play themselves.
Before everyone had a gun and was shooting at each other or using a sword. What about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
I was a bit old for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I didn't read the comic book.
The comic book's terrible. It's terrible. Just absolutely terrible. In retrospect, drawn pretty well with its indie sensibility, but that was terrible. Also, the politics of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are so problematic for me right now, but that's also involving the new Hollywood movies. Transformers. Too old?
Transformers. Transformers are alright. I found the cartoons to be a little bit boring, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't that into them, but I was into
Like the robot factor? Or?
I thought Voltron was pretty cool.
Voltron, yes.
I was very into
Diversity coming
I was
together.
very into Battle of the Planets and
Battle
Our
of the
Star
Planets.
Blazers. Were
Battle of
these
the Planets, remind me of
Japanese cartoons that they played when I was a kid. Battle of the Planets was about a group of 5 teenagers that had superpowers. I can't remember how they got empowered through scientific experimentation, I think. And they each had they flew in a plane, and one guy was the pilot, and then there was another little jet that popped off it. This one guy flew in a car, then another guy flew in a motorcycle that Princess rode, and
I have to look that one up. Do you remember the one that were the plant, like the plants and the technology combined?
Jace and the Wheeled Warriors.
Is that what that is?
Yes. I was
Okay.
pretty into Jace and the Wheeled Warriors.
I can see it. Biomechanics.
We're talking about all the cartoons I loved as a child now. I guess that's fine. Hey.
This is a tangential radio show, to say
And
the
of
least.
course, I think I was telling you that I was just super crushed out on the notion of living in the land of the Herculoids when I was a kid.
Again, remind me who the Herculoids
The
are?
Herculoids were sort of it was like Tarzan-ish, but they were on a foreign planet, and there was a father, a mother and son, and they had a dragon that could shoot laser beams out of its eyes and its tail, and there was kind of a woolly,
It was Hanna-Barbera.
a sort of rocky, 6-legged woolly mammothy thing, but it was kind of rocks, and it could shoot exploding rocks out of its tusk, and there were these two
I think I was into the tusk
two
shooting.
gloopy things that were they were kind of these blobby shape changers.
But that was Hanna-Barbara.
I think so.
Yeah. I think it came on after the Flintstones. I just vaguely remember it was a...
I mean, I'm also how much
It's
older?
the Hanna-Barbera hour.
Am I 9 years older than you? 7 years older than you?
I'm 41.
I'm 7 years older than you.
Yeah.
So this is enough of childhood that I got an earlier slice of Saturday morning TV than you did.
Yeah. I mean, even that time though, don't forget they did play reruns.
And all the reruns and shit all came back, of course. Yeah, I watched my...
The kids today think they've seen the Brady Bunch. They haven't seen the Brady Bunch. You haven't really watched the Brady Bunch unless you've skipped school your entire school life, and it's the only thing you watch besides Mork and Mindy.
Yeah. It's the truth. The Brady's.
I honest to God, tried to use lemons to extract my freckles
Oh, God.
based on a Brady Bunch
I
episode.
may have attempted that as well, at least once.
And we may have ruined it. We want those freckles back. I would take those freckles back in a second. I do. Honey gave a sort of... You just accept who you are.
I have the freckles I have. I don't know.
I still have. Look, I got some right here. When I tan, I realize this. When I tan, it's literally just.
It's like a lot of freckles coming together.
Yes. It's like
me too.
bringing all the freckles out.
Yep.
What other cartoons? Well, I actually do think that I mean, honestly, as an honestly, what's the most
technically?
Technically, the most insincere statement ever is. Honestly, I just have to say, I do think a lot of. I mean, obviously, whatever you were watching as a kid had a lot of impact on who you are and why you engage with the world.
Sure. And it's funny, sometimes I watch those old cartoons. Scooby-Doo is a good example, where all the backgrounds are watercolors.
Again, Hanna-Barbera. It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you say you were a Space Ghost fan? No.
I did like Space Ghost. Space Ghost and the Hercules, I think, shared a program.
I think it was the Hanna-Barbera Hour. I feel.
We were talking about Grape Ape, too.
Grape Ape, yeah.
Grape Ape.
Was it a full show or was it like a 10-minute segment?
I can't remember. And do you remember Magilla Gorilla?
No.
How much is that gorilla in the window? There's Mr. Peebles, who was like the pet store owner, and I think there was a little girl whose name might have been Penny. I feel like every little girl was named Penny at some point in.
Well, that was on Pee-wee's Playhouse too.
Penny too.
Is that a different Penny?
It was a different Penny, but I don't know.
If I was gonna have a daughter,
I guess I know what I'll be doing tonight after you leave. I'll be like researching Grape Ape and Magilla Gorilla.
Yeah, why watch Riverdale when you can watch Grape Ape?
Sometimes it's rough though. For some reason, something reminded me of the Adam Ant cartoon. And
You've mentioned this before.
Of course, the first one I looked at was like so racist. I was just like, oh Lord.
The Adam Ant?
Yeah, it was like he was fighting this like this kung fu ant that was like so like buck-toothed out and like glass, and it was just like, oh man. So much for Adam Ant.
Never a big fan. His music?
No, not the band.
Oh.
That's Adam Ant. Atom Ant was a cartoon about a little ant that had superpowers.
That's funny because then Marvel has Ant-Man, and then DC has Atom, which are essentially quasi the same character. Their purposes are the same.
But you know, this Adam Ant was actually an ant in the cartoon.
Okay. Turned into an ant.
No, he was an ant who had superpowers.
Yes, I missed. Okay. Please forward me.
But again, the one I watched, I was like, damn, that was so racist. I don't even, can't believe it's there, but...
Okay.
I can believe it.
I just finally caught up. So there was a cartoon with an ant who's the size of an atom, who's superpowered, and still deals with racism.
He was the size of an ant, because he was an ant.
Well, why was he called Atom?
Because he had superpowers. He had like a little insignia that was like an atom, and he wore a helmet.
So the ant could get even smaller to like an atom size?
No, I think that just related to his like atomic powers.
Or just roll off the tongue really
Like,
well. They were like, yeah, that's right.
I think he might have just been super strong. I don't remember anything about him other than that maybe he was super strong and fast. He could fly and stuff.
We're going to share this cigarette.
Oh my god.
I mean, slowly. Let's look at the time. Okay.
How long does the radio show go for?
There is no set specifics. What? When I do have to catch a plane.
Oh yeah, what time is it?
5 till 8.
I'm sweaty.
Well, is there any topic we should cover? Is there something you feel animated about?
Art-wise, or anything-wise? I mean, I have my other projects. I'm working on my book.
Mm-hmm.
Buy my book when it comes out.
What's it going to be called?
I didn't want to talk about that part of it yet, but yeah, it's basically like an autoethnography-ish reflection on my own performance work. Right now it's chronological. It probably will be.
Okay.
I feel like it makes sense chronologically. I had a moment of being like, why am I doing this? It seemed like there was...
How big do you think it's going to be?
Right now it's like maybe 150 pages.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have...
How many performances do you think you've done in your life?
I mean, at this point, since 2009, when I sort of consider like what what I did to be my first, performance art piece.
That was in 2009.
Was in 2009.
So it hasn't even been 10 years yet.
Although, I mean, reflecting on my life, even just my name,
for sure.
certainly I was like, oh, this element of my, just self has actually been around longer than the thing that I have come to call performance art. But in that catalog, which is, it's about 10 years.
Do you think performance art's dead?
Do I think it's dead? No, not at all. I mean...
Look at the president?
Look at the president. I mean, looking at everything as performance is really fascinating. I mean, all of these things are performances, I think.
We haven't even gotten into gender and performance.
I mean, you can look at it, all of it is performance. So I think in that way, performance art is always going to be, live bodies. They're interesting. They have, things to share. And even though, performance art, I think that one of the things people hate about performance art is it can be so bad, and that is true. And I think that's also its nature, and that's one of the things to love about it.
You know what you don't hear about really bad performance art? My child could do that. I hope we get to a society where people are going, my 7-year-old could get naked and vomit on a wedding cake. Of course. Where's the art? Who are you?
I just think those explorations on some level are just inherent to living if you want to investigate them that way.
Name a few performance artists who, of course, with any artist, there's going to be some work you don't like, but who do you follow no matter what, or
who do I follow?
Or even if they're dead, whose work
no matter what.
Duchamp is too puritanical in retrospect.
I can't even think what would you call it?
He was working in sculpture as performance
piece.
Well, he was also cross-dressing.
I guess I only think about his more object work, and apparently the whole urinal piece was
his wife's idea.
Was stolen. Whoa. Not his... I don't think it was his wife. I think it was just
I didn't even know he had a wife. I just made that up.
A sculpture that happened to be a woman who...
It was a woman. I've been reading about this. What was her name?
I can't remember now. It's terrible, right? This is, I think, the whole problem, right? But,
because Duchamp won. Names are important. Duchamp.
But, historically, pieces that I have always just been wow.
Yeah.
That was fucking
Let's
crazy.
talk about pieces. All right.
That boys piece with the coyote. What is that called? America Loves Me? America...
By who?
I can't remember. Joseph Boys, where he arrives wrapped in felt and is put into this cage with a coyote and stays there for a week or whatever, and then is escorted back to an ambulance, taken to the airport, and shipped back to Europe basically. And he's spent his time in the gallery locked in with a coyote and some Wall Street journals and a felt blanket and a cane, I think.
And this speaks to you.
It's so great.
Next one.
Just for the, and Marina? I love a lot of Marina's work. I love Marina's work up through, her... it only got insane to me when it turned into the Celebrity Quest.
Yeah.
Which then it was just
But I think it was always a Celebrity Quest.
Maybe. But, but it became so
What piece? What, do you like her and Ule?
Yeah, they have some beautiful pieces.
I think so as well.
There's that... I, of course, have only seen still photos, but the one of her holding the bow and him drawing the string with the arrow pointed at her, I think is super just
that's
even in
intense.
the imagery, you're wow, okay.
Well, in that fact though, that's a still the documentation, so you read about it.
Well, and I imagine the piece to be fairly still and static anyway, so it's just sitting there. The tension stays in the photo. I think a lot of performance things you can try to take a photo of it, and it's unless you're really there for the chi. It's different.
I stand by their the piece when they were naked in the doorway.
Mm-hmm.
I think based on our society, you can recreate that piece over and over again. Of course, I'm sure in Miami nightclubs it's happening and it's fun. But for your general population,
they did it. They did that piece for when they did her her retrospective thing. When they did the artist is present, that piece was presented.
At the Guggenheim?
At MoMA.
I'm so bad at music.
I mean, I wasn't here at that point, so I didn't see any of that show, but...
What about Ule's work just on his own?
I don't know any of his solo work, actually.
Okay, what about Chris Burden?
Chris Burden, I mean...
Hit or miss?
No, I love Chris Burden, actually. I love a lot of his sculptural pieces, too. And the performance stuff, like, in some ways it's like, where would we all be without Chris Burden on the docket of just, like, you just shoot. It was just, like, such a moment of, like, you know, where is this going? Kind of amazing. And the documented that is really cool.
The 13-second clip?
There's like a clip, and then there's like audio, and then the brief bit of the visual, and then it goes into the audio just after, I think. Someone like strung together a couple recordings. It's pretty cool.
Bruce Nauman?
Bruce Nauman. I really have had great moments stumbling into Bruce Nauman's video, you know, body experiments, like performance for video.
Rebecca Horn?
Rebecca Horn.
Do you know her work?
I know who she is, but I can't think.
Field, Unicorn,
She do a lot of like long finger things. Am I crazy about that?
Maybe. Yeah, I feel like I see that in the art history book. That just might be someone else next to her in the paragraph that I forgot.
I think sometimes it's like until you see some level of motion in them, sometimes it's like hard to like feel them as performances. I can't say that I've seen any of her like stuff documented on video or whatever.
Are there contemporary artists you would recommend? No.
Well, it's not even no. I just think people should just go check shit out. Based on my recommendations.
Well, I'm just wondering if there's stuff you could, like, if there's someone you gotta go see their work or you keep up with them.
I mean, I would more recommend, like, just Panoply Performance Lab as a place to see stuff happening.
In New York.
In New York.
Brooklyn.
In Brooklyn, while it lasts. It's
yeah. Is it in peril?
I think we're always in peril under our current situation.
I feel like a lot of in Kansas City and in the Bay Area, those are the only two I can speak for strongly, a lot of the spaces that are available for people to do this work is moving to the suburbs, which is closer to a European model of like the class issue. So, you know, what are they called? Strip malls are becoming like really nice punk clubs and performance spaces in a lot of Midwestern cities. And I would say in the outskirts of the Bay Area too. I don't know about New York.
I don't know about New York either. I mean, New York, of course, has the challenge that like the Bay Area is like so fucking expensive. I don't even know. I mean, one wonders is like, but even like moving out from New York, it doesn't really get cheaper that fast. So then you're really fucking far out, and at the point that you're like, I don't know, like somewhere on Route 22 in a strip mall in New Jersey having a performance art venue, I just don't really see that.
It sounds super relevant to me. I want to go
relevant,
right now.
I just don't know how many people you'll ever have showing up there, which, you know, is another experiment altogether.
Do you need the people from the city going out to it, or are you just dealing with the people that are there? You know?
Well, that's what I mean. Even the people that, like, because you wouldn't get people going out to it, but no, you would not. New Yorkers can barely like move from to different boroughs, much less go somewhere that requires a car to get to fucking Route 22, New Jersey. Like,
trains are hard. The trains are harder and harder and harder.
And then I don't know what the local draw would be for that. Although, who knows?
Okay.
I mean, if you maybe someplace that had like more of like school.
Oh, near a school, yeah. I don't know, the schools make me nervous these days. I feel like it's a lot of... But whatever, I'm not going to go down a school route.
I don't know, I never went to school, so... Not quite true. But I didn't go to art school.
Me either. If you... What about music?
What about it?
Just try. What's your jam, as the kids don't
Oh, I
say.
don't want to talk about that.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. Somehow I don't like discussing music in some ways.
You don't want to be held accountable for
I
what
don't
you
want to be
want.
held accountable. I think there was a time when music was more crucial in terms of finding kindred spirits, perhaps. I feel like the internet has changed that in a lot of ways, and it's not essential quite in the same way that it was. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
I think so.
Like it was more tribal or whatever group, or like groups formed around it in a different way.
I think those things still happen.
And I'm sure they probably do. I'm also like pushing 50, so like, you know, I'm not experiencing or consuming music in the same way that I did when I was like in my teens, 20s, 30s, whatever.
And you're not taking it in as visceral. Like, it's different. It is different. Like, when your hormones are... Your body's changing, and you're engaging the world, and you don't know how it actually operates.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a period of time when I can just sing, like, every fucking song that was ever on the radio. Like, you know, you just are endlessly, like, you know, somehow you know all of the lyrics and all of the bands and all of the things.
And find something redeeming in the shit that was...
I mean, I don't have a sense of radio at this point.
No, well, that's society. It's changed.
Yeah.
Talk radio has taken over.
So, like, the popular music I hear is, like, at the gym or at the...
Tell me about the gym.
At
What
the
do they do at the gym?
drugstore.
The drugstore.
Or whatever. This is how I came to sing Sweet Misery at karaoke.
You heard it at the gym?
No, because literally there was a while where I was like, every time I walked into a grocery store or
It was on.
a drugstore or something, I would be hearing Sweet Misery again, and I'd be like, all right, that's going to be my new karaoke jam.
Let's talk about karaoke. Why do you like karaoke so much?
Singing is fun and important and good for the self.
For your chi?
For your chi, it totally is. And I was a child singer, and I think that I finally just was like missing it. And you know, again, I don't know what the again refers to, but like we don't have much connection to the actual making of music in the way that we once did in just like human history, and it's more of a listening, consuming project at this point than although a ton of people do make music for sure, but even that tends to be like not so much. I noticed this is a thing where there's just like a lot of like solo artists with like, you know, laptop keyboard and a microphone,
reverb pedal, or loop pedal. I'm sorry.
I mean, of course, like band culture still exists, but again, I'm like sort of like past that in my like just age world.
What are you looking forward to in your new age world?
In my new age world, man, it would be nice to have a garden sometime.
Yeah. I mean, kind of have a garden in here, but it's not quite. Yeah, you want like.
I mean, yes, houseplants
How many
are
plants?
awesome.
How
I
many
have no
plants?
idea. I haven't counted them.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Probably 20 or 30.
And they're necessary for your existence.
I mean, I like to tend things.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty necessary. I mean, imagine if I had none of them in here. It would be strange, wouldn't it? I mean, I guess I could have, well, you know.
What?
What budget do I have? I could be like ultra modern, no plants, like, dude, but like.
Some of these are clippings from the park?
A few of them, I think this one might be from the street that I've made into many plants. Some of them have been gifts, like housewarming gifts. Some of them I just have picked up at the farmer's market or wherever.
You need plants.
What? I do need the plants.
Okay. Well, we can't end this without talking about bird friend.
Okay.
So you have a...
Bird friend.
Bird friend.
You gonna say anything, bird
Bird
friend?
friend's actually, like...
Are you getting up? What are you doing? Are you laying an egg?
Someone wants to be a
Are you laying
picture
an egg?
taken.
Is it already time to lay an egg?
Is that the position?
Oh, she might be. She might have done it. She might have laid one.
She looked like a... I was going to ask you earlier, what's the term? Not colloquial.
Her cloaca.
Cloaca, thank you.
Her pooping,
It looked-
kissing, egg-laying tube.
It looked... She did look a little... or they was very...
You okay?
Had a protruding situation going on.
You alright? You alright? You
Just-
alright? What are you doing? What are you doing? You a good bird? What's going on? Did you lay an egg? No, you're looking funny. What are you doing? I don't know. Good bird. What are you suspicious of? What are you suspicious of? You're funny.
I tried to move the mic to get it. Can you recreate that dialogue?
No, I
Just so
cannot. Isn't
I
this
can.
the worst? I always feel like a little bit like, oh, listening to people like baby talk to their animals is one of the most like, ooh, sometimes you're like, oh god, that's so, nah, I can't do it.
It's one of my favorite things to do ever.
I mean, everyone does it, but sometimes hearing other people do it can be just like, ooh, no.
I mean, you left me with this bird for 6 weeks, and the dialogue changed dramatically. You do keep your normal tone, and she does speak to you, and I.
Oh yeah, you do like a higher specific voice.
See, actually, she probably didn't understand I was here until I started doing that. It's like, oh, that one's bad.
Little bird.
But at least it's not, John Conkle cussing for 45 minutes. Hi, John. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, Bertram does have a suspicious look going on right now.
Yeah, I don't know what she's up to.
I'm gonna drop an egg. So wait, so we don't know how many eggs do you have. So how many eggs did Bertram lay in this apartment?
I mean, I feel like there's some math that I could do maybe and figure it out, but I don't really
It's
know.
one a month?
I would say it's two a month.
But it didn't start at the beginning.
Didn't start at the beginning.
Please tell the listeners how you found this bird.
Well, listeners, I was heading through the park,
Prospect Park.
and on my way to be background in my friend's video shoot. And I was just walking along, and I was there in the grass, little white bird, and I was like, oh my god, little white bird, you shouldn't be here. And then I had this whole kind of like, vegan quandary, for lack of a better word, and I hung out there for like an hour, and I was texting my friend being like, I'll be there, I'm dealing with this bird, blah, blah, blah. Finally I was like, okay, little bird, I'll be back in an hour. If you're still here, we're going to work this out. And I did the video thing.
Were you worried about the bird during the whole video thing? Thinking about it.
I was certainly thinking about it. And then on the way back, I went past the lake house. No, the boathouse. The boathouse where the Audubon Center is or was, and grabbed the Audubon guy, and I was like, Audubon guy, you must come with me. There's a little white bird, and it was a ways, and I was just dragging his ass through the park. And he was like, it's probably just a fancy pigeon, don't worry about it. He really thought I was taking him.
Fancy pigeon.
He really thought I was taking him to see one of those pigeons that, for whatever reason, the pigeons are all basically domesticated birds that escaped anyway, so.
I'm just surprised you didn't name the bird Fancy Pigeon. Go on.
And we got there, and he was like, oh no, she's actually a little, ring-necked dove, and, scooped her up. She wasn't injured. She just was kind of lost and confused. Probably got let loose for a wedding or some other celebration.
Mm-hmm.
He picked her up and was like, she's not a wild animal, so I can't take her.
Oh, that was his rule.
Well, because he worked for the Audubon Society. I guess, they would have dealt with, if it had been a possum or something. Or
So she was just prey?
She was domesticated, because all domesticated birds must have a leg band. So he was kind of handed her to me and was like, she's just going to get eaten by a raccoon or a hawk here, so if you want to take her home, take her home. And, I just had her in my hands, and I walked home and let her loose in my apartment.
And how long has it been?
That was 5 years ago, maybe now.
Has it only been 5 years? I feel like this is bridging on 11.
I've been here only 6, so.
Oh, okay.
And she didn't live here the first year, so it must have been
This fancy pigeon has the rule of the roost, I declare.
And then we just, developed our relationship over that time.
Mm-hmm.
She nearly died once from eating my own art detritus.
Which was
I was crushing malachite I was making, during a moment when I was not having sex with others, I decided I should have sex with my work. So I was making those sperm tempera paintings.
Wait, did she ingest your sperm and the...
No.
Oh, well.
But
It wouldn't be the worst thing.
and that would involve crushing minerals and then having this little like sex ritual and making like whatever, making these paintings.
Yes, important stuff.
And one of the minerals is malachite, and I crushed it up in here. And I used to have this like sisal rug, and she would like to just go and pick through that. And I think she picked up a few chips of malachite from that rug, and then she had copper poisoning, heavy metal poisoning.
Oh my.
So.
How long was she sick?
She was sick for a while. I had to medicate her for like, I think I had to force feed her for 2 or 3 weeks, and I had to force medicate her for like 6 weeks.
Okay.
And
she needed her Gatorade.
And then it was after that she started laying eggs. Like we had such an emotional bonding experience over me.
That's what started
feeding and medicating her. That I think she decided we were bonded, so she started
Lifelong
laying
partners.
eggs. Yeah. Right, bird friend?
It's too late for noises. It's like
Not
whatever.
feeling like talking at this point.
Yeah, we should have done this in the morning when bird friends are really going at it.
So that's the story of bird friend, basically.
Rock and roll. How do you feel about this podcast? Radio show.
I think this is like the greatest radio show ever. I think there's at least 3 or 4 minutes that I wouldn't throw away.
We don't have time for editing around here. I gotta catch a plane.
Yep.
I can't wait to hear this background noise of the wind. Is it the wind? I thought it was raining in a second. I was like, no, it's not. It's just wind.
Yeah, I think it's just wind and white noise from the street.
It's beautiful. It's amazing how comforting the city can be when you live right next to the park.
Well, it's funny too how it can be so quiet for moments. Like it's pretty just like chill right now, and then like
No drum circle.
yeah, no drum circle. It is Monday night though. No, it's Tuesday night.
Mm-hmm.
That's why
It's the Tuesday after Labor Day.
it's the Tuesday after Labor Day.
This will probably be posted sometime in November around Thanksgiving. So
I'm also selling rugs. So
Yeah.
anyone that has $20,000 or $25,000, hit me up for a handmade rug. Yeah,
coloring books.
coloring books.
What else?
I just finished the second edition of the coloring book, which is
Oh, you
actually unchanged other than I decided to change, like, there's some introductory stuff that I decided to change.
Okay.
And I actually don't have one. I gave the 3 that I had away, and I have to
Is the
do
paper
more.
quality different?
No, it's about the same.
Okay.
It's still like the magazine paper, because that's just what I have available as like
No, I understand. I'm looking. I need to
for the
publish mine.
publishing.
I don't know.
Yeah, there was no format that I liked in available, like coloring book paper, whatever that is,
Newsprint.
newsprint or whatever. So it's
Sturdy newsprint.
it's glossy magazine paper, which works with markers.
Yeah. For those who can afford markers.
Those who can, if you can afford my coloring book, you probably can afford markers.
One would hope so.
Were you around when John was here and we were listening to X a lot, and there's a clip of Exene talking before the live performance of We're Desperate, and she's kind of being like, they're going to be like, one day they're going to be like, well, they're not desperate. I mean, we paid $6 to get in the show. They're not desperate. I mean, but we're not like rich. I mean, we pay the rent. And we bought the ink and the pens.
The times, they are not a-changing. They are not a-changing. Well, honey, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. Also, it's been a pleasure to let me stay at your studio once again as the disparate couch wife.
The couch wife. My couch wife.
Disparate couch wife.
Disparate couch wife.
Also, what was we're gonna be printing a
Gays
zine.
live over there.
Gays? Oh, good. Oh, that's right. I have a really amazing video shoot of several of these windows. I know it was probably super inappropriate, but whatever. Lots of things happen in these windows, and this, is it a window well?
I'm sure I put on some shows myself, but...
I'm sure I've been a part of it. I'm sure when you were gone, John Conkle and I put on a show or two. In fact, I know we did.
That's one of the joys of New York living, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. If you can't embrace window wall watching, what can you do?
I remember one day I felt actually a little sad about it. I was like, wow, the neighbors fuck wearing t-shirts.
Bravo.
Anyway, la la la.
No judgment.
No judgment. Just a little bit like, oh, okay.
On that note, will you help me sing the theme song?
What's the jingle out again?
It's the jingle out's the same as the
I
jingle
can't
in.
remember it. I forgot it already.
Let me slam some whiskey. Hold on. Gurgle, 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 gurgle. Okay,
Is it for people who don't care to what? Listen to the
Time Waster Radio. For people who refuse. Wait. Time Waster Radio. Radio for those who refuse to listen.
Okay. Are we gonna do it the same way we did? Are we gonna? Okay. So
You can do it any way.
we're
you
gonna
want.
do duet, and I'll do the talk out.
Sure.
Okay. And wait, what's my line again? I forgot already.
Radio
People
for
who
those-
radio for those who refuse to listen. Okay. Okay.
Do you think it could need editing? Do you think I should change it?
No, I just couldn't remember.
Okay.
I'm in
I'm
that
open.
state.
I'm open. We're a new show. Which is a lot.
Are you gonna count us down?
1, 2, 3.
Time Waster Radio. Radio for those who refuse to listen.
Alright, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you later. And make sure to buy t-shirts off the website that doesn't exist. Bye. There's just a little ambiance. A little, give
What?
that space and time. I'm just half joking. I don't care.
Am I supposed to be saying something?
You can.
But didn't we just conclude the program? Oh,
Sort of.
Is this like the talk out where like we're like just sitting in the studio now being like, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Terry, for coming. Or Terry, thank you so much for having me. No, it's my pleasure. It's your pleasure. How much jazz do you really listen to, Terry?